With a swift movement, Chen destroyed the monster's upper body. The mutated rat's remains flew across the room, its blood and guts splattering everywhere. It was a fitting end for such a repulsive creature. As the blood sprayed around, Chen expressed his disappointment, wondering if that was all the monster had to offer. The creature's pathetic look suggested it had underestimated him, not realizing how overpowering his plot armor could be. On the other hand, Yun was munching vigorously on his large chocolate and asked if the people downstairs were his friends while glancing at them from the corner of her eye. Her expression was one of disappointment, likely because she hadn't expected his chocolate to be so unimpressive. Chen, looking down at her, confirmed that the people downstairs were indeed his friends. She grabbed a chair and declared that she intended to repay him for the chocolate he had shoved into her mouth. It seemed only fair, considering he had also saved her life. Yun, with her striking physique, hurled the chair through the window, shattering it and revealing her volatile nature. She then announced her plan to handle the situation downstairs. As she stood by the window, strong gusts of wind threatened to dislodge the remaining bandages covering her important areas. She gave Chen one last look and warned him that Lu Haiyan wasn't so easy to kill and that he needed to be cautious. After that, she leapt out of the window and plummeted swiftly due to the weight of her mountains. Her bandages were bound to come off, but I suppose the artists didn't want to cater to degenerates like you. As she neared the ground, a horde of filthy rat monsters was running through the area, indicating a fierce battle. Despite the dangers below, Yun dove into the fray, hoping to assist Chen's friends already caught in the conflict. As she descended through the sky, her size and the milk jugs grew larger. By the time she collided with the structure below, she was enormous enough to supply the planet with an endless stream of her liquids. The destruction she caused made Chen's friends, who were on the ground, terrified as their hearts pounded in fear and thunderous crashes reverberated through their bodies. One of them was an attractive girl dressed in a bunny suit with curves that could rival Yun's. It was clear this character's primary role was to captivate those who lacked excitement in their lives. The person next to her was an unattractive fool, still grappling with what had just occurred as cold sweat dripped down his face. Yun screamed in pain due to her sore butt from the crash landing. The unattractive man and the bunny girl turned to see the source of the commotion, and they could hardly believe their eyes. The bunny girl questioned whether she was hallucinating, unable to believe the sheer size of the mountains right before her, while the man stared in astonishment. With the destroyed buildings and structures in front of them, they couldn't believe they were seeing a giant woman. While they were still trying to comprehend the situation, many of the rat army lay dead behind them. Yun gritted her teeth, still recovering from the pain of the fall. She eventually got up and began walking through the battlefield. The others were still bewildered by the sudden appearance of the giant woman. As Yun moved around, the ugly fool begged not to be crushed as he gazed at her private chambers, likely wishing he could disappear. He even noted the color of Yun's bandages, which were barely holding up. One of the filthy rats got crushed beneath her foot, and you might have wished it were you experiencing that instead. As the filthy creature's ribcage was reduced to sawdust, Yun didn't realize what she was stepping on and asked what they were. She lifted her foot for a closer look, while the other rats stared at their unfortunate companion, slain by the mother of milk. The rats looked terrified by the ominous aura that Yun exuded. Before she fully realized they were rats, the vicious creatures began pouring out of the buildings and charging towards her. Eager to avenge their fallen comrade, they were merely a horde of foolish beasts. They raced across the field with lightning speed, causing chaos in their wake. Some people tried to escape, but only a few managed to flee, while those who were caught in the creature's paths were swiftly turned into shish kebabs. The foul rats made Yun scream like a frightened child. She cried out for help because she couldn't endure the repugnant creatures. Everyone else started fleeing from her as she began pounding the ground like an unhinged child. The shockwaves from her stomps and the movement from her upheaval made them all flee in panic. She kept shouting at the creature to stay away, while the others tried to calm her down before she would trample their pitiful lives into oblivion. Some decided she was a worthless lunatic and tried to escape. Chen observed the chaos below, thinking to himself that he was no longer surprised by the girl's madness. At the same time, he was astounded by the extraordinarily powerful ability Yun displayed. Unbeknownst to him, as he gazed out the window, the rats in the room began to transform and come back to life. He quickly turned and saw the repulsive creatures rushing toward him, but he seemed to regard them with disdain. Despite their overwhelming numbers, they appeared as nothing more than pathetic weaklings to him. Chen stood there, a picture of defeated resignation, as the rats swarmed and crawled over him. He recognized that Lu Haiyan was indeed a formidable opponent, embracing the swarm with an air of unwavering composure. He allowed himself to be enveloped. The rats began to merge around him, forming a grotesque figure that seemed ravaged by disease. Within seconds, he was entirely consumed, showing no sign of struggle, as if he felt a strange sense of belonging among the foul creatures. From the heart of the swarm, Lu Haiyan's hand emerged like a sinister revenant. The grotesque, menacing rat reappeared in full, as revolting as ever. He chuckled and declared that his body was practically immortal, ridiculing Suchan's futile attempts to kill him. With his bucktooth and foul breath, he was poised to continue being a nuisance to everyone around him. The others fighting below were stunned when the rats abruptly ceased their attacks. They stood motionless, like soulless automatons, as if their minds were linked to a hive, awaiting their next command. The bunny girl and her companions puzzled over why the rats had suddenly halted. With the rats in perfect unison, they looked up to the top of the building, where their leader loomed like a comical cartoon villain bent on world dominance. At the top, Lu Haiyan reveled in his glory. He stood and grinned with his repulsive body, feeling victorious and certain that his enemies were hopeless. His eyes sparkled, and he had a smug expression on his grotesque face. The others recognized him as the king of the rats. Cold sweats broke out on their foreheads as they gazed at the malevolent creature. They were paralyzed with fear, their eyes devoid of hope, knowing they were powerless against the Rat King. All the rats kneeled in unison, pledging their loyalty to their leader and revering the one who made their vile existence possible. Bunny Girl and her companions were astonished that the rats were even clever enough to perform such actions. Meanwhile, Yun Yun continued to storm around furiously, swatting the rats and shouting for them to move aside. Her frustration with the grotesque creatures was palpable, and the presence of their loathsome king only added to her ire. She approached Lu Haiyan, thrusting her chest toward him and demanding to know where Su Chen was. She was prepared to deal with a rat king decisively if he didn't reveal the location of her beloved. Furthermore, she still intended to have her way with his chocolate. Lu Haiyan remained unshaken by the aggressive woman before him and informed her that her precious man was gone. Offended by her disrespectful tone, he made it clear that she was courting death, his sinister grin signaling his readiness to send her to her end. Yun Yun, being completely oblivious, didn't notice in time when the rats began crawling over her and clawing at her skin. Frustrated, she cursed them for distracting her from her goal of confronting their king. It wasn't only her who faced the wrath of the demonic creatures. The bunny girl and the other inept lackeys struggled to keep up as the rats went berserk and attacked them with ferocity. While they fought to maintain their position, Yun Yun was overwhelmed by the rats who eagerly sought to claim her. She tried to shield her face with her hands, leaving her other areas exposed to various forms of assault. Lu Haiyan laughed at them and was about to boast about how he would use his rat army for something cliché, but he was abruptly interrupted by Su Chen's voice. The protagonist reached out from the depths of the monster and apologized for the delay in finding the crystal core. Lu Haiyan was stunned, his expression was one of disbelief. He remarked that Su Chen should have been entirely devoured, but he had foolishly underestimated the power of plot armor. Su Chen tore open his chest with his bare hands and emerged from the foul abyss. He cleaved the Rat King in two and stepped out with a fierce red gaze. His body was marked with glowing red symbols, and even though Lu Haiyan was split in half, he still couldn't believe it. Su Chen gazed down, feeling like the ultimate being in the universe, though he was merely another lucky fool. In his hands, he held the Rat King's crystal core.